Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today I've got a full tank review for you on this Sentinelle. This is a tier 9 French premium heavy tank that has a 2-round autoloader, and we know how well 2-round autoloaders do in World of Tanks, like the Bourrasque and the EBR-75. So is this going to be the new autoloader king at tier 9? Well, that's what my job is to tell you today. And you know how much I love my tier 9 autoloaders. I'm looking forward to seeing this one. So I'm going to compare the Sentinelle to the Object 752, which is probably the best tier 9 premium heavy tank you can get your hands on, and the Tech Tree TNH-VZ51 and the Progetto 66. So we see that all of these vehicles have very similar damage per minute, but keep in mind that the Progetto 66 only has that for its first shell, and the deeper it goes into the magazine, the worse it's going to get. Penetration-wise, the Sentinelle is fantastic at 261 on its standard rounds, which means that if you're somebody who doesn't like to spam gold, this might be a good opportunity for you. 303mm of APCR pen is also good as well, but not quite as good as the Object 752s. This vehicle has a 2-round autoloader, but it only has 105mm. That's disappointing for overmatching. I would far rather have the 122 on the 752 and the VZ51, and even the Progetto 66's 120mm will overmatch, for example, the sides of an STB1. The alpha damage at 390 is the lowest in this comparison, and when you consider that the 752 has that 3-round mag capable of doing 1,170, it's not looking good so far for the firepower of the Sentinelle. However, it's the intra-clip reload on this tank that is nice. 2.5 seconds is lovely. It's basically like an unnerved TNH VZ51. But when you consider that the TNH VZ51 has 440 alpha that delivers in 2.73 seconds, I still think I'd rather deliver 440 in 2.73 than 390 in 2.5. So all in all, firepower for the Sentinelle, not great, but not terrible. However, it's really where the gun handling shines on this vehicle. 2.3 seconds aim time smashes all of the other tanks. 0.35 accuracy. Better, much better than the 752 and the TNH VZ51. Just a tiny little bit better than the Progetto 66. But look at this moving dispersion. Can almost get away without taking crew skills like Smooth Ride if you really want to. The vert stabs, I'd still recommend it because of the intra-clip reload, because you want to reduce the bloom after firing. But even the bloom after firing at 3 is not bad at all. So it doesn't matter how sweaty you kind of set this vehicle up, it will still feel like it can deliver that second shell fairly reliably. And the turret reverse dispersion of 0.08, well, that's magnificent. 8 degrees of gun depression makes this fairly flexible, but pretty much all of these vehicles have good gun depression. So the speed on this tank, again, a great aspect to it. 45 forwards allows you to get into position quickly, rivaling the Progetto 66, and only just slower than the TNH VZ51, but it's that power to weight that's great. 17.5 power to weight ratio, as well as weighing 60 tons, which will allow you to ram your opponents very hard like you can in other French heavies. And not only does this vehicle have the best power to weight, it also has the best ground resistances in this comparison, with only the Object 752 getting close. So all in all, this is a very nimble vehicle with good gun handling, but mediocre firepower. So is the armor going to be great as well? Because if it is, this thing's looking fabulous. Oh dear. 90 at the front of the hull, 50 at the side, 240 on the front of the turret, and 100 at the side. Oh, this thing looks very stinky. And when we take a look at the 3D model, we can see, yes, it's absolutely blooming horrendous. This thing's hull is like 175mm, so even tier 7 tanks firing standard rounds are going to be able to challenge it when it's not angling. And even if the vehicle does angle perfectly, it's still only got 200, and then you make the awful side armor weak as well. Even if this vehicle's using its 8 degrees of gun depression, the upper hull will fall to heat rounds, as they are only going to need about like 290, so good penetration heat will go through this upper hull very easily indeed. And you've also got this, I guess, driver's hatch here, which even if you're using your full gun depression remains a big weak point on the front of the vehicle that never gets close to the auto ricochet angle for AP rounds. The turret armor as well, it's 250 when you're using its maximum amount of gun depression. It does have some spaced armor to the left and to the right, but when this thing's not using much of its gun depression, good penetration premium rounds will just go through the whole of the front of the turret. And it has a weak point on top that isn't big, but unless you're using your full gun depression is exposed. Oh, and to annoy you even more, the vehicle has flaps over the tracks that if people are aiming up when you're cresting a ridgeline, they only need 91mm caliber guns. And the fact that it's huge from the side as well, boys and girls, this was one of the most frustrating vehicles that I have played recently with regards to hull armor. And I would have never really have thought that I'd be begging to play a Progetto 66, which has a much better turret, and the hull armor is oh so much better, especially if you're using the vehicle's 9 degrees of gun depression. And nobody really thinks about the Progetto 66 as being a well-armored tank, right? Well, trust me, the Sentinelle makes the Progetto 66 look like one. The hit points on this vehicle are 1,800, nothing special to go with that very weak frame. And view range-wise, 390 means that you will pretty much not ever need to take coated optics on this tank when you use the correct field mods. So crew skills wise on this vehicle, for your commander, I would recommend Brothers Repairs, Recon. I've got Mentor, but you should probably take Practicality instead. Emergency Coordination will do you well on this vehicle. For your gunner, I'd recommend Brothers Repairs. You can take Snapshot. I'd personally rather take Designated Target on this vehicle because of its excellent gun handling, as I showed. I'm going to take Deadeye Armorer, and I've got Concentration activated. You could just replace Concentration with Designated Targets. You're probably not going to be sitting still for long, but this is my AMX 50B crew that I have in this vehicle. For your driver, I'd recommend Brothers Repairs, Off-Road Driving Engineering, Controlled Impact, and then either take Clutch Braking or Smooth Ride. And for your loader, Brothers Repairs, ammo tuning, and then you should probably take Perfect Charge and Safe Stowage and Intuition on this vehicle. I wouldn't really focus on Adrenaline Rush and Close Quarters Combat. The vehicle's damage per minute is awful, and it is an autoloader, but I have my AMX M454 crew on this vehicle, which is why I have it set up in that way. For equipment on this tank, I would personally recommend 2 builds. 1, Vents, Vert Stabs, Turbo. Use that speed to get into position. The vents will help everything about the vehicle, and the vert stabs will allow you to deliver a very accurate 1-2 snap. You could drop the vert stabs for an aiming device if you wanted. However, I feel like with a vehicle with 2.5 seconds intra-clip reload, you really want to be able to deliver those 1-2s quickly. For my second build, I'm going to be dropping the turbo for those maps where I don't really need the big speed and taking the durability device instead for an all-round brawling build. For the field mods on this vehicle, I would take all-terrain suspension, follow it up by improving the accuracy of the vehicle. Then I would improve the view range of the vehicle. For your slot bonus, I would recommend taking the turbo and then putting either the vents or the turbo in that, depending on what build you're using, and using the durability in the durability slot. And then finally, the final field mod, I'm still kind of sitting on the fence. If you always take a turbo, it doesn't really matter even if you lower the vehicle's reverse speed, because you're still going to go at 16, which isn't too bad. But if you don't want to take a turbo on this tank, man, yeah, your reverse speed is going to go down to 12. That's absolutely horrendous. But on the other hand, a vehicle like this, there can be a big difference between reloading in 22.4 seconds and 21.1 seconds for just being able to get those magazines out during the game. And the DPM of the tank goes from 1,900 to over 2,000. So it's up to you to really make that decision. Personally, for me, for conservative players, I'd go for the reverse speed because it's always nice to be able to pull back over the ridgeline. For aggressive players who will always use a turbo in their build, probably lower that reload a little bit. But anyway, I think that's quite enough talking about the Sentinelle. Let's see if it can be the guardian of the battlefield. Okay, so we're rocking in a tier 10 and tier 8 matchup right in the middle of it. And our plan is to use the turbo to be able to advance along the south. Whenever I play this map and I see there's no artillery, there's even more of an opportunity to position an opposition. That's a good combination there. To be able to make our way down the south, to be able to put some pressure up on our opponents, extend our team's view range, and try and harass them on some ridge lines. You've got to be careful, though, because you remember, my hull armor is absolutely horrendous in a vehicle like this, and irrelevant of whether you're playing this tank or not for advancing along the southern flank, all-ins do happen. Has anyone been playing World of Tanks recently? I think there's been a lot more, shall we say, easy play around with aggression and people charging you down at the start of the battle. That is for sure. Wargaming, thank you so much for putting in so many missions into the game that require people to do ridiculous things with regards to kills inside, because I expect we're all going to be enjoying getting YOLO rushed for the next few months, if not years, with people trying to complete those missions. Thank you very much. But I digress. Let's focus on the Sentinelle, and that is finding out that 8 degrees of gun depression is not quite enough to be able to work that ridge line perfectly. So let's just keep on advancing and see if we can find someone to poke with our gun. That's at least the plan, I guess. So the turret armor on this vehicle and the gun depression at 8 degrees, it's not bad. And so when you get into position, look at that. 1 and 2. And I'd say actually, my bloom is almost too good there. What do you mean your bloom is too good, Mr. QuickyBaby? Well, look, when I'm deciding what kind of equipment to take on a vehicle, I always try to take a look, especially on my autoloaders, that there's so much reduction you can make to the bloom after firing. For example, on top of the vert stabs on this tank, I could take a directive that reduces the bloom. I could take an experimental turbo, which reduces the bloom. And I could take a rotation device instead of the vents. That, although that will lower the accuracy and worsen the aim time of the vehicle, it will definitely change the bloom. So on vehicles like this and autoloaders, I always think about how much reduction do I need to that bloom after firing to still be fully aimed while stationary. That's kind of like my sweet spot. Man, look how amazing that armor flashlight is for now finding out where we can go through the STRV 1030. But for some reason I decided not to shoot them. I guess because I don't feel like they're a threat and not aiming at me right now. And I'd rather put hopefully 2 into this XM57. So would I recommend actually not taking the vert stabs on this vehicle? Possibly. You could go for like a turbo vents durability build, or you could go for like a turbo aiming device vents build if you really feel like you want to be sniping a little bit. But I do feel like the vert stabs, while they're maybe slightly overkill, I still think that they're doing some wonderful job for keeping the gun handling going and allowing this vehicle to snap its shots and not have to sit still for very long. And for a vehicle that has weak hull armor, quite often if you can avoid sitting still for too long and be able to catch those shells, then you can avoid taking the damage in the first place. One funky build you could do for this vehicle is perhaps a level 3 experimental turbo might be killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. You might be able to replace the vert stabs altogether, and while you will have slightly worse engine power, I feel like the vehicle is not lacking on the engine power. So a high-level experimental turbo will still give you the reverse speed that you need, while also then maybe freeing up an equipment slot to maybe improve the health or the accuracy of this vehicle. It could work out well on this tank. Again, it's really hard when we have 3 vehicles come out so quick succession to really tune in those builds, but that is what I'm kind of gravitating towards on this vehicle. Level 3 experimental turbo, vents, and then your choice of either durability or an aiming device will be the absolute peak performance fabulous build, I think. So now, does the vehicle justify it? That's my job today to let you know. And we can see that when you're sitting in a position and you're kind of controlling that engagement, boy, that's a brutal slap. Boy, that's a brutal slap as well. And so what I found with this vehicle is that if you don't need to use your damage per minute and your opponents all just sit there in front of you and you can hide behind a ridgeline, or in this case, position one of your dead allies to become the perfect cover of World of Tanks, then this tank is pretty gnarly. You know, I'm not exposing my hull. I'm only exposing my turret. My turret is holding up at least reasonably well. However, whenever they catch my hull, you can see it doesn't work so well. And then, you know, this gun is just pretty nasty. It's a pretty nasty gun. Unfortunately, a bit disappointing there. Just, yeah, getting caught in the hull, getting caught in the tracks. But that T-44 thought they'd come back for another snack. Well, not today, young lad. I'm going to put you in your place. Je suis désolé, mon ami. Oui? Sorry, guys, I'm not really going to go full French here. On enfant rapide, oui. Okay, no, we can't do that just because I'm playing a French tank. That did look painful, Commander QuickyBabs. Why have I put Commander QuickyBabs in a French tank? Did you know I'm actually an 8th French? My great-grandmother, is it great-grandmother? Yeah, I think great-grandmother was French. You have 8 great-grandparents, right? I'm pretty sure you do. Yeah, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents. One of my great-grandmothers was French. So, yeah, that's where I obviously get my, cooking skills. Yes, French people good at cooking. I'm okay at cooking, so yeah, I'm especially good at cooking on the battlefield in this tank by the looks of it as well. Get out of my game, T-44. Just a solid game for a tier 9 heavy, right? However, look, this game. Did I recreate this? Did I replicate this game in every single round that I played? No. I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but I personally think that a game length of 6.5 minutes right now is quite long for World of Tanks. And I'm incredibly lucky that all of those players just sat up in there scared of the Sentinelle. I don't know why they were. They could have just come down in the 20 seconds that I had between my reloads and punished the ever-living daylights out of me. But look, when this vehicle, look on the other side of the screen, not at me, when this vehicle does do well like that, with its, when you can pull off 6,200 combined, you know what? It works. It makes bonds. It makes credits. It's a half decent vehicle. So let's do it all over again. Try and find some new friends on our allied team and shut down our opponents for French glory. Wow, that's brilliant. 2 key at the back. Is that to remind him to dab the 2 key? Excuse me, sorry, when he's in third person? You know, he's just driving along there. Oh, 2 key. That makes me better at the game, right? Oof, sir. Beautiful shot into the back of that Leopard, giving me a little bit of extra assistance. And wow, the enemy team are definitely going for the hill right now. Is this what I'm meant to do as well? Try and get up on that hill, see if we can grind out our opponents? Possibly here. All right, so Type 68 in front. I'm going to turn the Volkoldov a little bit here. And just try and harass, see if we can harass our opponents. Again, what is up with QuickyBaby and using allies to be able to create positions? Well, I think it's because I'm playing the Sentinelle. And trust me, after you've played this vehicle, after you've suffered through the hull armor that this vehicle has, you will want to try and do absolutely everything that you can to try and avoid getting shot in the hull. Why couldn't that guy be on the other team, that M6Y? I'm thinking, should I go up and just take an opportunity to go after the Type 68? Maybe not. Possibly, yes, 1390 up on the hill? Maybe. Okay. Type 68, is he going to come around the corner and try to harass me? And again, licking my wounds and getting back behind the Volkoldov here to hopefully be able to catch some shots. Couldn't manage to go through the guy's side armor there and also the track, but that one did. I have to admit, this armor flashlight, I don't care who you are. You could be one of the better players on the server. It is still blooming useful. A lot of people were saying, oh, armor flashlight, good players won't need to use it because they know everything. But just for being able to make those micro adjustments, it's very hard to tell the difference between if somebody's angled at 70 degrees and if somebody's angled at 69 degrees, which makes a big difference as to whether your AP shells can go through or not, right, guys? It's just such a useful tool that I thoroughly recommend that everybody turns it on from the default, unless you find that it's distracting you. And if you find it's distracting you and like preventing your confidence, and look at that there. Was I meant to remember that the Type 68 had angled lower hull armor, a bit like on a Chieftain, for example? So when the armor flashlight kicked in, I knew to adjust a few pixels higher, right in the middle of the enemy's vehicle. What shall I say? Right in the middle of that lovely green bar along the side to be able to make that second shot count. Whereas I think naturally most players would have aimed in the center of the front axle to have the best chance of hitting the front axle. But that was actually a bit of a bait in that scenario. So the Sentinel's fired 2. I'm going to come around the corner, put 1 in, put a second in on the move. Vert stabs Master Life there. And now I've got this awkward situation where the Sentinel's going to reload faster than me. So I'm going to pretend like I'm running away from him. But what he doesn't understand is I'm not running away from him, and he has a realization. Oh, yeah. And do you know what's really weird? That T-103, there must have been some server lag or something, because the T-103 actually stole the kill, and I didn't get it. But I still took ram damage. So that must have been literally right on some server lag there, so that I don't actually get the ram kill. But I would have ram killed that guy. I would have ram killed that guy for that 47 hit points for sure. So far so good, right? 4,500 combined. Wonderful game. Going to reload HE because there's a Bourrasque, an SU-130 PM, and an SU-130 PM. But I'm going to have to switch back out to AP and...
Ouch. You know, I might just have a video on this tank.
Well, now you do. You do have a video on this tank. So I get a nice amount of assistance, 1,100 extra, but that was like the perfect bait, right? There's 4 tanks on the enemy team out of the 6 left that I can penetrate with HE, so I thought, why not? And then I see the butt of an AMX. I can't penetrate it with HE, so I have to load AP. And within that intuition switch time, I get absolutely obliterated. And ladies and gents, that was my experience of this tank. As soon as you expose the hull, utter obliteration. And honestly, if you expose the turret when you're in nasty matchmaking, when you're having to play against tier 10s, or, you know, for real now, tier 11s, the turret just absolutely wilts under pressure. Right, so one more for the road. We are rolling out on Westfield, and beautiful opportunity for this tank right at the beginning, right? All of my opponents are on the opposite side of that bridge, so let's slap 2 shells into the tank. Perfect amount of time to reload to be able to go and deliver that double tap, whereas other autoloaders might be still reloading. The Sentinelle is ready to go and punish and get punished as well. Oh my goodness gracious. Lower shot by, I guess, the SU-130 PM through the lower plate sets me on fire. And we also get penned right in the front of the turret through even the space protection that we have there by a heat round from the WZ-111-1. Goodness gracious. If you think that you can expose this tank, you just really can't. It's ultra depressing in that way. It really is, boys and girls. If you want to play a heavy tank that has some armor, get yourself a 7.52. And honestly, you'd do better with a tech tree tank like the Progetto 66, but the Progetto 66 isn't going to make you credits. It's not going to make you bonds. I can't believe I'm really recommending a Progetto 66 here. Look, I like the Progetto 66. I think it's a really fun tank. It's fabulous. I like it. You've got all the strengths of the single shot with better DPM, and then you've actually got autoloader performance, which is better than this as well. But let's see if we can do a bit of a challenge. We made a mistake at the beginning of the battle, or shall I say the tank let me down. Kind of hand in hand there. Who does a good worker blame his tools? Probably not. But the result is that we're down to 200 hit points, having only done 400 damage. Let's see if we can manage to come back into this one. And that is, let's punish that pesky XM57 and aim for another shell up there against the 111 FT. Don't quite manage to get revenge on that pesky TD, which punished me so hard at the start of the battle. But maybe later, right? Maybe later. So we're going to reload here. We're going to spam some gold. See if we can manage to finish off this XM. Because XMs don't have souls, right? Harsh, QB. Harsh. Harsh. And look at that gun handling. Do really like it. It's definitely one of the, by far, the best aspects of the tank. Being able to deliver one shell and then fire it off at another vehicle, or alternatively just hit almost weak points while moving slightly on your opponents. So I'm going to see an opportunity here. And you know what? When you're down to 200 hit points, what's the worst that could happen, right? Let's go take this dip. Oh yeah, look at this. This is just what you want to see. And when you're down by 3,000 hit points, you don't really have time to faff about. SU, shut down, Tiger Mouse, side of the turret. Easy peasy for this tank. Beautiful. And now we're starting to really pump it up. 3,600 combined after starting on 200 hit points. Not too shabby. And I'm just hoping that we can be able to get this object 705. That 705 seems to be looking at me with very hungry eyes. And I gotta trust my turret armor here. We ricochet him, come up, put one shot in, look for the second shot, trying to find the angle. Another one in. Oh no, T10, kill him, kill him, kill him, please guys, kill him, please guys, kill him, please guys, come on. The 705 is actually the one who got me in the back of the turret. But you know what? A good save. A good save. We ended up with actually like 4,400 combined here, a perfectly reasonable result for any tank. And what this hopefully shows you is the Sentinelle, as long as you're playing ultra tight and you're not exposing your hull, and you're looking for good opportunities without really getting caught in the turret, it's an okay tank. However, for every game that I had like this, where it was okay, if not good, I had games where it was just so incredibly frustrating. I feel like you're waiting forever for this gun. It doesn't feel in any way like a Bourrasque or an EBR with regards to having a 2-round autoloader. It kind of feels like a TNH VZ51, but without that extra firepower and without just having the extra armor that you'll have on a TNH VZ51. I really can't recommend this tank at all. I think that you'll do so much better in an Object 752. It's almost laughable how much better the 752 is in this tank. Also, the Medviet, I'd say the Medviet is just better for just loading gold. It's got ultra powerful gold and just pushing through your opponents and just holding down that mouse button and just absolutely power farming them. Yeah, the Sentinelle for me, I'm not going to say it's a horrendous tank. It's not. But do you really want to be playing a glass cannon heavy in the current meta of the game, where it truly is get stuck in and kind of overpower your opponents with armor, or have some armor to at least be able to fight back? I don't think that this is a great vehicle in any way. I think if it had been a medium tank, maybe we could have been talking. If it had better camo rating on the move and was a slight bit smaller with the statistics that the vehicle has, yeah, I think it could have been interesting. And I don't think it would have been overpowered as a medium tank either. But maybe Wargaming feel like the autoloading tier 9 market is saturated for the medium tanks, considering that we have vehicles like the Charmurarin. I think Wargaming's issue now is that tier 9 is starting to become saturated with good picks for premium tanks. And so by putting in a vehicle that really doesn't either have anything novel about it or doesn't feel exceptional in any single way compared to its counterparts, that I don't think it's really going to sell. However, he says, it's in loot boxes. So if you want to get the Volkodav, you don't really have a choice. You might end up getting this one, and then you'll have to put another $50 in to be able to get the Volkodav if you have all of the other vehicles, right? So I think that's Wargaming's real trick, that they can put in vehicles, maybe one really desirable one, with a few other vehicles that maybe people aren't so fussed about. And you know what, if they get them in their garage, they're just going to leave them to gather some dust. But maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on the Sentinelle. Once again, I want to reiterate, I don't think it's a terrible tank in any way. You can definitely make it work. I've showed in this video, you can make it work. I think it's just that complete lack of forgiveness in it, as well as the camo rating. And when those two factors combine, it creates a hell of an ugly cake. Or in this case, an omelette. I'm going to have to end on that. Anyway, ladies and gents, boys and girls, please, all my lovely French viewers, don't chastise me in the comments down below. Je suis désolé, mon ami, mes amis. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this tank review. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about the Sentinelle. Do you think it looks like an incredible tank? Do you think it looks like a bit of a stinky tank? And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.